Hey everyone, I'm John Lynn, the founder and chief editor at Healthcare IT Today. We're excited to bring you another in our series of interviews with top leaders in health IT. And our guest today is Hal Wolf. He's president and CEO at HIMSS. Welcome, Hal.
John, thanks for having me.
Yeah, excited for this discussion. We're here at HIMSS Europe, which, I'm really excited because it's Rome. I appreciate you bringing it to Rome and, and of course, all the team in Italy that brought it here. But for those who don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself and HIMSS.
Well, I'm a 21-year veteran of the healthcare industry. I've always been on the innovation side, and I've always been very dedicated to both improving the efficiencies and capabilities of healthcare and taking it as best we can, as we always should from a patient perspective. I've been involved with HIMSS for almost 11 years.
Wow.
I was on the board for 4 years. I was a member long before that. But actively involved in the board and in the organization as CEO almost 7 years now. So it's literally been 20 out of my 21 years I've been involved with HIMSS, I guess is a better way to put it.
Interesting. Time's flying, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I think most people, especially in the Healthcare IT Today community, know you. But, as I mentioned, we're here in Rome at HIMSS Europe. What has been the reaction of the European community to HIMSS Europe?
Actually, this year has been incredibly gratifying. We've had a huge turnout here in Rome. We literally have thousands of people that are here.
Yeah,
it's the largest crowd
seats.
we've had. Yeah, there were none, right? This has been a standing room only sort of space. And by the way, it's a very big, facility conference. It's been quite exciting. I think it's the largest crowd I think we've ever had, actually, from a HIMSS Europe. So it's been quite unique. We have over 80 countries represented here in Rome. We've had a tremendous turnout by leadership of the Italian government, including the Minister of Health, the Mayor of Rome, the President of the Rome region, which actually has responsibilities of social care as well as hospital care within the framework. Underneath, in conjunction with both the municipality as well as the government. We've had leaders from France and, Spain and the Netherlands and Saudi Arabia and Israel and many countries in between, Lithuania, you name it. We've had an incredible relationship with the World Health Organization, European region. We had a ministerial meeting that included, Finland as well, and of course, as I think we mentioned France earlier. So we've just had an absolute extensive turnout of ministries from around the European sector, and as well as some from the Middle East, as I mentioned earlier. And we've also had just a constant exchange of data, thoughts, and thought leadership.
Yeah. It's so interesting because you're right, it is all these government authorities because that is healthcare in many countries. And I even saw where they didn't say patient, they said citizen, right. Which is a different mindset. What do you see as some of those hot topics, at HIMSS Europe, maybe a couple that are universal, that everyone's talking about even in the US or wherever it might be, versus some that are very specific to Europe?
Yeah, well, I actually think that the challenges we're talking about are universal, right? So we all have aging populations. We all have to deal with chronic disease management. We're all dealing with tight finances. We're also dealing with, critical elements of trying to find the right data and the right information, more importantly, to utilize. And we have demanding consumers. But the biggest challenge right now is everyone is struggling globally with workforce and workforce management. So we have high need, not enough supply on the clinician side. And digital health is a pathway forward for that to help supplement the workforce and take care of a growing population. I think what's unique in the European market is that you have a couple of really critical pieces of legislation that have passed. So you have the resiliency program, which is bringing money in, which is helping those in the EU to get funds to launch EMRs and start to build a faster pace of digital infrastructure. We have the European data health space, which is really critical in how information can be used, where it can be used, how that information can be accessed, where that's going. And then we also have the AI Act that just recently passed. So where do you need to have oversight of AI as a medical device? How is that risk being assessed? The reason these are so important is not just because of what's happening in the EU. This calls for the exchange of data between countries. But just like we learned with GDPR, we think about GDPR in the United States all the time because we have Europeans coming in and out of our data systems, and we have to be GDPR compliant even though we're in the United States. Besides that, it's also pretty good legislation.
It's not a bad idea.
It's not a bad idea, right? It's a really good idea. And Europe has really taken the lead as well on the AI Act and also on the Data Space Act. And so what this is doing is laying a groundwork that is not only within the EU and other European countries on this exchange, and I'll give an example in a second, but it's going to have ramifications around the globe, including the United States and other places. So the way that this is thought about is that now if I happen to be a French citizen and I'm vacationing here in Italy, and something happens to me while I'm in Italy and I go in the hospital, I will have access to my French record, and it will come across not only in French, but be translated into Italian. So this is completely different than what happened before the pandemic, where we really had hardened silos in the European ecosystem that was stopping data from leaving a border. Well, the pandemic taught us some really important lessons.
Yeah.
And one of those lessons is we need better data, information at the patient level. So I think it's really exciting. The last piece that I think is incredibly important is the fact that we think about this from a citizen point of view. It's not just about the patient. Patient-centric, yes, but even more so citizen-centric. And the reason I think the citizen part is so important is that you can be young and healthy and not a patient, but we still want to understand and protect your individual data and information. We still want to make sure that you're covered in that data protection space. And we think about in Europe as the rights of a citizen to healthcare. It's not a privilege, it's a right. And so they think about it very much from a citizen standpoint.
Yeah, very interesting. How about, we have a lot of people from the US, obviously, that follow healthcare IT today. How has HIMSS Europe kind of come together different than HIMSS in the US? In case, many of the US people are like, should I be at HIMSS Europe? How has it come together differently? What kind of different nuances are here?
Yeah, well, I think the scale of the global conference is an example. It is very big, right? But HIMSS is a society. It's not an association. So we all know that nothing happens in healthcare from one individual group, right? It's not just about the technicians. It's not just about the nurses. It's not just about the doctors. It's not just about the analyst, right? It is everybody, including the government officials and the ministers and the people underneath the ministry. It has everything to do with the global app ecosystem. And so what happens at the global conference, including Interoperability Showcase, you see a bit of a microcosm of it here, but it's really many of the exact same subjects, and we're building on that education. So you have people from all over the world as guests here, from Asia as well, bringing their point of view. And that's what HIMSS does incredibly well. We service a particular market, and we have many communities here in the European market. The Italian community is well represented. I think over 600 individuals in our Italian community alone are walking the hallways, right? And we have people, as I mentioned before, from all over the globe. So our Scandinavian, community is well represented, and our German community is well represented. So some of these people go to the global conference as well, and we love that because they get to see at the global conference this very expansive view. Our European conference usually comes a couple months later, as it has this year. Then people come here and they bring their lessons learned from the global conference, and then we add into it the fresh European perspective, because when we have a global conference, the AI Act had not passed, and some of the other regulatory components had not yet been cemented. Now they have. So it's like an amazing stew that we're just adding additional spices and flavors to. But this is tremendous thought leadership and really high-level individuals that are sitting and talking to each other. So it's incredibly informative.
That's awesome. Talk more about your plans internationally. You know, what is HIMSS planning internationally going forward?
Yeah. Well, we've grown internationally at such a speed. So if you go back 6 years ago, we only had a couple thousand members internationally. We weren't even at 3,000. Today we're well over 43,000. So we have a huge growth in international. Today, 2 out of 5 members of HIMSS are from outside the United States.
Wow.
So of course, HIMSS is an amazing foundation in Chicago. We're a global nonprofit now. Our global headquarters is here in Rotterdam.
Okay.
So we have a very strong commitment to the European community. And we're growing and developing and adding to that thought leadership on a regular basis. We're doing the same thing in the Asian market. So we call it EMEA, which is European Middle East, you know, in this particular market. So we're very excited about it. We have a lot to learn from what's happening in Europe. The United States is paying attention because Europe now is actually out in front of us from a regulatory standpoint and the way that they're thinking with great positive energy. About the citizen point of view and how all the new technologies, and it's a very flexible framework. So I think the United States and other countries around the globe are going to be very smart, pay attention and adapt. And I think we continue to see more people coming in from overseas to HIMSS Europe because they want to understand what's happening before it occurs elsewhere.
Yeah, very interesting. Well, let's move a little beyond just the international aspects. You know, since I have you here, talk some of the efforts, you know, happening, you know, for many of us in the U.S. that are interesting. Biggest one, of course, is that HIMSS sold your annual conference to Informa. Talk about how that's gone and maybe some of the plans going forward with the assets that you got from that sale.
Sure. So first of all, the relationship with Informa isn't what we thought it was going to be when we sold the global conference. It's been better.
Okay.
They're an amazing organization. Sometimes when you go into those relationships, the person you're working with tells you this is going to be great and you want it to be great and you get into it. It's actually been better than we thought.
That's great.
Highly respectful of each other. Their expertise in the way that conferences function, how to go about making it very special to each individual that attends. It's incredibly impressive. And we were actually in a meeting just a couple weeks ago. The HIMSS team and the Informa team, we're working super hard on HIMSS 25, which is going to be in Las Vegas this coming year, and in 25. So we're knee deep. There's actually people from Informa here at the European conference looking at what we do and what is the environment like and how do we share content moving forward. So the relationship with Informa has been fantastic. It's also given us freedom, and it's probably one of the best assets that we got was the gift of time. You know, the global conference took a lot of energy at HIMSS, and it still does, because we're still very much involved in recognizing that the global conference is the single most important membership event that HIMSS has. And members come from all over the globe to be together. And it's really astounding, right? And you saw it continues to rebound and get bigger and bigger and is heading back. On top of all that, what we've also been able to do is to say, okay, the content we're creating at the global conference, we get to reshare. Just like the content we create here in the thought leadership, we'll carry that forward into Asia Pac in Seoul, Korea in October. And then that will pull more information that will influence 25. So we've been able to free up time and resources and be able to invest in our people. And we've also been able to invest in our membership. And that's really exciting because membership value has always been our most important strategy, right? It's our number one target. How do we make sure that each individual, institution, And market supplier, who's a member of HIMSS community, gets the maximum value out of the thought leadership that occurs. And we've been able to focus on that.
Interesting. I think that is one of the challenges that so many people thought HIMSS is a conference, this annual conference, which is a big part of what HIMSS has offered throughout the years. But what do you see as maybe some underappreciated efforts that HIMSS does for your members as well?
Well, I would almost inverse it. So first of all, there's things that we do for our members, which is true, but the membership and the foundation of HIMSS has the ability to create scholarships, which we do. We have over 70 students. Literally today, a person came up to me who's finishing their master's at Villanova. They were visiting here. And about 3 weeks ago, we got an email, and it was, I am working to get to Rome. I'm literally a little short, and can you help me? Here are my grades. This is what I'm doing. I've been a HIMSS student member for the X number of years. And we were able to support them, and help them come over. And he was kind enough to come up today and say, I just wanted to introduce myself, because I didn't know him.
Sure,
we just knew the quality of the person and a dedicated HIMSS member. But we have scholarships through our foundation. We have scholarships that we work across the globe to help people be a part of the ecosystem. The inverse is also important, which is what do the members do for HIMSS? So we have over 40,000 people that are members of HIMSS that are engaged in committees and communities and are very active, a part of their chapters. That's the foundation of our society. And so they contribute up. They participate in our maturity models, our digital transformation, our policy views. They contribute in help setting the agenda for HIMSS, not just for the year, but the years ahead. So we are a highly engaged membership society, and we hope to continue to give the value to them and those forums as much as they give to us.
Yeah, interesting.
Excuse me.
Yeah. No, I think that's really interesting. I enjoyed a session on MRAM in Italian, which I was like, wow, that's, the fact that they have an entire dedicated session to Italian was pretty powerful, and it was packed as well. So that was interesting to see.
So it's a great example. I mean, MRAM was selected by the government in Italy to be the measuring capability of the progress of their regions. So we have been in the process of measuring all of the regions from public hospitals that are engaged with their investment in the resiliency program out of the European community.
That's awesome.
We're measuring them now. We'll be coming back and measuring them in a year or two, right? So we've done the same thing in Germany. We're in the process of other countries as well, where we're measuring before and after, and then giving guidance in between about the areas, then they can see it from their scores, about where they can improve to improve their quality and their access. And so we're honored, really honored. And the Minister of Health was glowing yesterday, the Mayor of Rome glowing yesterday about the impact that HIMSS and its measuring capabilities have had on the communities already. So we're very proud. Yeah. And what you saw yesterday were people coming to learn more. How do I take advantage of that strategic expertise? And that's just NRAM. Yeah. The digital transformation suite of maturity models helps all the way around. But yesterday they were very focused on that because of the ministry.
Yeah, and they said something really beautiful. They said MRAM is not an IT project. It's a business strategy, which I thought that was a powerful
idea. It really is. I mean, that's exactly right. Look, I've been in IT for a number of years. I won't say how many at this point. But we always come back to people, process, and technology. The technology in healthcare is the easiest part. It really is. But how do you take the technology and make it a part of your strategy? How do you impact the processes around you to take advantage of the information the technology brings forward? And how do you handle the change management and the retraining of your workforce in order to take advantage as well? And that's not just what happens in the walls of a hospital. This is also about outside in? How do we take the data and the information from our personal devices? How do we begin to take the outside information that influences the life of a person to talk about how to better take care of that citizen? And then how do we aggregate it to understand population health? And how do we aggregate it again so we can take a global view and recognize the trends of where we're going?
Yeah.
So all of these things are the critical pieces that lend themselves, I think, to the betterment of digital health and then the impact on the health systems themselves.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I have to ask this last question, probably more so for my healthcare marketing community, Sway Health, because they ask it all the time. And they said, thanks to COVID, or unfortunately because of COVID, however you want to look at it, HIMSS and Health IT conferences are smaller. Any chance we get the HIMSS annual conference back to like New Orleans or San Diego? I know we outgrew it at some point. I don't know. You're almost back to the same size, but anyway, any chance I'm biased. I live in Vegas. I love Vegas when you bring it there. But
well, the HIMSS conference itself continues to grow, right? Mm-hmm. And you're right. We're almost back at the same size we were before the pandemic itself. And we're expecting a pretty healthy increase into 25 and 26 as well. Yep. And we're making plans based on that. It's difficult. Right. There's two factors that take place. One is, do you have an exhibit space large enough to handle the 1,000+ exhibitors that come in?
Yep.
And secondly, when you're talking 35, 40,000 people coming to learn from each other, do you have the hotel capacity to sustain it over a 3-day period or 4-day period, but 3-day period coming up in this year in Vegas? So that's really what kind of hits the situation.
Yeah,
and it
I
does
remember we
limit us
outgrew
a
New
bit.
Orleans. It was tough that last year.
Well, you remember we were there right after the hurricane too. I think it was only just a couple years after, and New Orleans had finally reopened, right? Mm-hmm. And New Orleans is a fantastic town.
Sure.
So I know that Informa is looking at the options moving forward. You can imagine, and I'm sure you know, that the contracts that we had and they have absorbed, et cetera, are several years out.
Sure.
Because you have to reserve to keep the time slot you want.
Especially that big.
But you're usually, 3 to 4 years out. But they're very smart folks, and they're working on it.
Yeah. Well, I have to ask since everyone wants to know.
Fair enough.
But I understand. Hopefully it continues to be, the event that it is. I think Vegas, or Orlando, Chicago are all great venues that we all have come to know and love. So, Hal, I appreciate you taking time in your busy schedule here at HIMSS Europe to talk with us, and I appreciate everyone for watching and listening. If you want to find more great healthcare IT content like this, be sure to check it out at healthcareittoday.com or search for Healthcare IT Today on your favorite podcast applications. Thanks, Hal.
My pleasure, John. Thank you.